Secretary Reich, thank you for joining us and congratulations on your new book.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Randall. And thank you, everybody who's joining us. Thank you, Houston, and progressives everywhere.
Let's dive right into your book, which says, quote, "Forget politics between Democrats and Republicans. Think power." Why do you say that? Think power.
Because, Randall, it really is right now all about power. The real political controversy deep down in this country that's been emerging over the last 40 years, and I think Donald Trump is just the culmination of it, is not so much Democrats versus Republicans or right versus left. It really is democracy versus oligarchy. That is, and I'm using oligarchy in terms of the old Greek word, that is great wealth and great power in the hands of a very few people. That's what's happened in the United States over the past 40 years. Most of the gains from economic growth have gone to a smaller and smaller number of people. And we now know that the richest 0.1% has almost as much wealth as the entire bottom 90% put together. And wealth means power. And that power means the ability to continuously change and reorganize the market itself to gain even more wealth and power.
You say 40 years. What happened over the last 40 years?
Well, for one thing, we saw in the late 1970s, early 1980s, a fundamental change in American capitalism. And that change was from what might be called stakeholder capitalism, in which big corporations really did feel and act out a responsibility to all of their constituents, not just their shareholders, but also their workers, their communities, their environment, to a different form of capitalism, which is fundamentally shareholder capitalism, in which big corporations were committed and required by Wall Street to do whatever they could possibly do to maximize shareholder returns. Now, the catalyst for this was both Ronald Reagan and the Reagan administration, but it was also the corporate raiders of the 1980s who demanded that corporations make shareholder value the one value and the one goal that those corporations were tending to, which meant that starting then, corporations fired workers, replaced workers with machinery, outsourced abroad, fought unions, busted unions, did everything they possibly could to maximize shareholder returns at the expense of every other stakeholder. So it's not surprising that most of the economic gains over the past 40 years have come essentially out of the pockets of working class and poor Americans, the bottom 80% really. And the only people who've gained are people who have lots of shares of stock. The top 1%, the richest 1% of Americans owns half of the entire stock market right now. The richest 10% of Americans owns 92% of the stock market. Well, the stock market is certainly not American.
Why did the United States take this direction starting in the 1970s, and other nations around the world continue to maintain their middle class?
Well, I think that we did it, and it's a vicious cycle. And I was there at the time. I was in government and out of government. My first job was as an intern in the Senate office of Robert F. Kennedy. That's how old I am. And I remember the changes that started to occur. I then had a job in the Carter administration. And by the way, today is Jimmy Carter's 96th birthday. Talk about somebody who distinguished themselves and really has the moral character of a president and an ex-president like nobody else we've actually ever experienced. I want to salute Jimmy Carter. But what I saw was increasing amounts of money moving into American politics. No other country allows this degree of wealth and money to affect political decision making. It started in the late 70s, increased in the 1980s. By the time I was Secretary of Labor for Bill Clinton, I was amazed, quite really shocked at the extent to which big money was, even in a Democratic administration, was seemed to be calling a lot of the shots. Much of that money coming from Wall Street.
And are there 2 or 3 meaningful steps our democracy could take to get money out of politics? After all, Citizens United, this is, the Supreme Court said it was okay. What are the concrete steps to get money out of politics?
Well, the first step is going to be the most difficult, and that is to reverse Citizens United. It doesn't look like a Supreme Court in my lifetime is going to be doing that. And getting a constitutional amendment is very, very difficult, as it should be. But that is one important step. Another one, though, even if we don't reverse Citizens United through the court or a constitutional amendment, another is to do what is actually already being proposed by the House of Representatives in H.R. 1, the first bill to come out of this current House of Representatives, which is matching public money for every small donation that is under $200. There is a proposal in which people can check off on their tax returns that they want some of that money to go into a public fund to support candidates that will only take money from small donors. We've had something like this before, but this is much more ambitious. I think this is very important. Also, ending the revolving door between business and government, particularly with regard to people who are going to be overseeing the industries that they have something to do with in their regular careers. There are many things that can be done, Randall, and I've just begun with them. We also have to make sure that every dollar spent on a campaign or indirectly on a campaign is transparent, is revealed to the public, that there is full disclosure. That's possible, and we're not that far away from it, but we've got to have a Congress willing to pass this kind of legislation.